Tonight on Bridge City News, an earthquake rocked many homes and businesses in central Alberta today. We will tell you how bad it was. A special day is being set aside next month to honor Humboldt Bronco Logan Boulet and to raise awareness for organ donation. And Toronto criminal defense lawyer gives us his thoughts if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should be criminally charged in the SNC-Lavalin affair. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Residents in many parts of central Alberta awoke to an earthquake earlier today. According to Earthquakes Canada, the 4.6 magnitude quake began around 5:55 this morning and lasted for a few minutes. Many in Red Deer and Sylvan Lake reported their homes shook. Sylvan Lake Communications Officer Joanne Godet says the power went out in most of the town, but there were no reports of any damage or injuries. This is the first 4.0 or larger quake to hit the region since 1997. Team Alberta won a record 100 medals at the recently wrapped-up Canada Winter Games in Red Deer. For our province's efforts, the athletes were presented with the Canada Games Centennial Cup over the weekend. It goes to the province or territory who has improved the most since the last Games. Alberta last won the Cup in 1995 when the Games were hosted in Grand Prairie. There were more than 3,600 athletes and 4,600 volunteers who took part in the Canada Winter Games. During the closing ceremony, the Canada Games flag was handed over to the organizers of the 2021 Games in the Niagara region. Sunday was the last day on the luge track at the Winsports Canada Olympic Park in Calgary. There are doubts about whether there will be another season there. Winsport announced last month it would not be able to proceed with a renovation project on its sliding track because it could not afford the $25 million price tag. The track, which was built for the '88 Winter Olympics, needs a new refrigeration system and other upgrades. The president of Luge Canada, Stephen Harris, says Winsport is still in talks with the government about how to raise funding to help keep the facility open. April 7th will be a very special day. The Boulet family, in conjunction with the Canadian Transplant Association and Canadian Blood Services, will be launching Green Shirt Day. The day will promote organ donation awareness while honoring the memory of former Humboldt Bronco Logan Boulet, who donated 6 of his organs following the tragic bus crash last April. So what's involved for Green Shirt Day? You're invited to wear green and take part in the free family skate at the ATB Centre in the afternoon of April the 7th. Following that, the City of Lethbridge will light up City Hall in green. The Boulets will fly to Humboldt, where they will partake in a vigil and a day of remembrance on April the 6th. The Boulets are asking people to spread the word on social media to support Green Shirt Day on April 7th. The 60s scoop, where Indigenous children were taken from their homes and placed into foster care, continues to affect the lives of Albertans. The 60 Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta unveiled an exhibit today at the Lethbridge Public Library. The display shows testimonies from 12 different survivors. One survivor explained significance of hosting the exhibit at the library.
Can you imagine being taken away from your community, your family, and not being able to talk your language and loss of identity? And, so with all that emotional trauma that was going on, I did come to the library here, this very library, to seek haven from all the emotional, stuff that I was going through as a young child. And so it seems very fitting that we have come home to, Treaty 7 territory and the Lethbridge Public Library.
Overall, our government's approach is to ensure that reconciliation isn't just about words and apologizing for the past, but understanding ways that we can move forward. That's what this is about. And so that means making sure that we're protecting our public health care system, ensuring that we rewrite the curriculum so we've got reconciliation within the curriculum, something that Jason Kenney has said that he will scrap, that we are meaningfully engaging Indigenous peoples on things like conservation and parks co-management and the environment, investing in Indigenous communities and job creation and training. Also things that Jason Kenney has said that he will cancel or cut. Our government's approach has been all along that we need to continue the journey of reconciliation through substantive investments and through making sure that all Albertans have access to the same kinds of opportunities going forward.
The 60 Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta plans to take the exhibit across the province, and their next stop will be in Calgary. Human trafficking, 2 words that can shake us to the core, especially when children are involved. Joylyn Stickel is the director of Not for Sale. It's a group which saves kids around the world from being trafficked. She says, as a parent, we have to be diligent on where these predators are setting up, scoping out our kids.
There's a whole system that predators use where they go to the malls, and they know the type of kids, girls and boys, that they're trained, right? Like they're trained to see what these kids need and what they're lacking in their life, and they'll go to the mall and just kind of scope out and see what kids are kind of vulnerable. And so there's a lot of that goes on, and then they just kind of start befriending them, telling them what they want to hear.
Joylyn will discuss ways you can protect your children from being abducted coming up in the second half of our program. Police in Pitcher Creek are investigating the thefts of over $10,000 worth of specialized bikes and biking gear from the Beaver Mines Lake Provincial Campground. When officers were on scene looking into the theft, they also noticed a blood trail which led them to the head of a cow moose. Police are asking if you have any information about this crime to call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. March is Fraud Prevention Month, and last year there were over 11,000 reports of fraud in Alberta. We spoke with Staff Sergeant Glenn Henry with the RCMP in Coaldale, who gave us tips on how to recognize and avoid fraud.
I think the rule of thumb is if it's too good to be true, it probably is. I think a lot of people in the back of their mind, that little bit of greed in their back says that they would like this to be true and convince themselves to make it true. But if in doubt, you don't have to do anything over the internet, and over telephone, you shouldn't be intimidated by sales, this type of stuff. There are frauds that happen when people come to your front door. You can always verify through identification to confirm, but you can't necessarily do that over the internet or on the telephone. So again, if you're being asked to do something over the phone, over the internet, it doesn't hurt to do some research. It doesn't hurt to say no for now.
The RCMP say impersonation and identity-related incidents account for 14% of all reported frauds for 2018. It's a move many perfect, the old credit card swipe, turning a mountain of financial details with a flick of a wrist. BCN's Loris Alexander gives us a few tips on how to stay one step ahead of the crooks.
It's the latest in high-tech pickpocketing, happening right under your nose. Thieves stealing your credit or debit card information when you swipe on barely detectable devices, some tiny enough to fit right in the palm of your hand.
I am aware that sometimes the culprits will take the remote card machines and replace them with their own, which has removable data on them.
So what should you do to keep your information safe? Officials say when buying gas, choose a pump near the attendant or pay inside. Look closely when swiping your card for anything unusual and check your accounts frequently.
If you're not sure about a credit card type machine, one of the things you can look for is it secured to the counter? Is it behind the counter? Are the businesses taking safety and security of your money important? Is it important to them by them doing certain things to make sure it's safe?
Officials say as law enforcement gets better at catching these thieves, they just get more sophisticated.
You know, you may never know until it's too late, and now your money's being compromised, your bank accounts are being compromised.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
With spring coming up, melting snow could cause some serious problems in your basement. Brian Henschel, a local home inspector, explains what you can do to prevent flooding.
Spring thaw time is always a big concern for homeowners. Big thing I always recommend, more preventive maintenance. Don't keep the snow piled up against your home. All right, keep proper lock grading around your home at all times. Build that up over the years. Big thing I really stress on is keep your downspouts down and the water flowing away from the home. Usually minimum is 6 feet away from the home, but out far enough that the water continually flows away from the home.
Henschel says if you find water in your basement, the first step is to find out where it's coming from. You will need to get it pumped out and then call a restoration company to deal with waterlogged flooring and walls. The new ATB Recreation Centre will be opening soon in Lethbridge. Mayor Chris Spearman stopped by our studio recently to say this new facility will have something for everyone.
It's going to serve the whole city, and I think really the whole region. People will be coming in from across southwestern Alberta to use it. It is a very large facility. Total capital cost is $155 million. That does include the ice portion, which has been open now for a couple of years. But certainly the field house and the YMCA portion is going to be really an eye-opener for our community.
Catch my full interview with Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman discussing some of the biggest issues facing our city. That's coming up after business news. Another member of the NDP government caucus in Alberta says he will not be seeking re-election. Eric Rosendahl, MLA for West Yellowhead, says it's best for himself and his family if he spends less time in Edmonton and focuses more energy closer to home. Rosendahl, who will turn 70 this year, was elected in 2015. He noted some of his accomplishments as an MLA included a permanent dialysis clinic in Hinton, construction of a new healthcare centre, and a new elementary school in Edson. He also touted the grand opening of a coal mine in Grande Cache. Treasury Board President Jane Philpott has resigned from the federal cabinet. In a statement posted to her website, Philpott says recent events, including SNC-Lavalin, have shaken the federal government, and after serious reflection, she must resign as a member of cabinet. Philpott was first elected in 2015 to represent Markham-Stouffville in Ontario and has held 3 different portfolios, including Health Minister, Indigenous Services Minister, and then Treasury Board President. The SNC-Lavalin affair does continue in Ottawa. Federal Conservative leader Andrew Scheer says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should resign. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is calling for a public inquiry. Many are calling for criminal charges to be filed against the Prime Minister and his cabinet for obstruction of justice. Do not put Toronto criminal defense lawyer Ari Goldkind in that group. Ari, you don't think the Fed should be criminally charged? Is there a case here?
Based on what we know today, and that's important, there's still a lot to come. We haven't heard from Prime Minister Butts, who was really the Prime Minister of Canada until he resigned. We are in a position where obstruction of justice is not made out. I appreciate its catnip to media and headlines, and particularly the Andrew Scheer Conservative Party screaming from the hills, but on a very rudimentary analysis, mindful that I'm a defense lawyer, Jody Wilson-Raybould gave the very defense in her testimony, which was, I don't even feel that there was a crime being made. It's proper to pressure me. I just don't like how often they kept bugging me. That is not obstruction of justice.
The federal Liberals also announced a new bill, C-93, where pardons will be given to those who had criminal records for marijuana possession prior to recreational use pot becoming legalized last October. Now, this affects up to 500,000 Canadians. Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale hopes the bill will be passed into law this summer. Is this a slippery slope we're going down?
There are so many thousands of Canadians, particularly young people, that were smoking a joint or caught with a roach in the car, and they ended up getting criminal convictions, not discharges, not peace bonds where they promised to be a good boy, but criminal convictions where they couldn't apply for rental housing, they may have problems at the border, they may have certain problems getting jobs. And remember, this is different than an expungement. People will remember there's a difference, that an expungement means that the crime should never have happened. We should never have charged somebody with that. That's the argument for homosexual sex and charges going back to the 50s and 60s, that's sort of abhorrent to the values of Canada today. The argument for pot is very different. We've learned more about marijuana. The tides have turned. We don't see it as a dangerous drug or a gateway. So why should these young people particularly be saddled with a criminal record?
Toronto criminal defense lawyer Ari Goldkind, thanks a lot for your time today.
My pleasure.
During a stop in PEI, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked if Jody Wilson-Raybould will be allowed to remain in caucus and seek re-election as a Liberal.
This matter is to be determined by the Attorney General. That is what I said to the former Attorney General, and that's something that the current Attorney General knows full well. So this is part of respecting the rule of law and the independence of our judiciary. In regards to the jobs, it's important to highlight that there are jobs potentially affected in Corner Brook, Newfoundland, in Port Elgin, Ontario, in Grande Prairie, Alberta, right across the country. And our jobs as ministers and indeed as Prime Minister and as a government is to stand up for Canadian jobs everywhere and to do so in a way that respects our institutions and the independence of our judiciary.
After detaining them for nearly 3 months, China is suddenly alleging that 2 Canadians, Michael Kovrig and entrepreneur Michael Spavor, were acting together to steal state secrets. The 2 were arrested on December 10th, days after Chinese telecom executive Meng Wanzhou was arrested in Vancouver at Washington's request. Last week, Ottawa announced it will proceed with the American extradition request for Meng, who is facing charges she misled banks about Huawei's business with Iran. A tornado roared into southeast Alabama and killed at least 22 people on Sunday. It was part of a severe storm system that caused catastrophic damage and unleashed other tornadoes around the southeastern part of the United States.
So I grabbed my dog and went and got in the closet, and I'm sitting there holding the door just in case, because it didn't close all the way. And a few minutes later, that's when I could hear all the wind and the house moving, And then next thing I know, I can smell pine, so I knew something was in the house.
I just watched it just suck the clouds in and everything, and heavy wind and everything. And then we ran inside, and after that, it was just a lot of debris flying, and we just watched it out the window. And then we come outside and start helping the community clean up.
It's bad. I live right up the road from here, and we were home when this came through, and it was, we knew it was bad. We lost power, but we were getting a lot of phone calls because of the area. So when it passed, my neighbor, Lynn Allen, he's got some heavy equipment, so we decided right then, as soon as it broke, to go load everything up that he had, a little mini excavator and some chainsaws, and get out and just start trying to help people.
Hollywood actor Luke Perry, who played Dylan McKay on the hit TV series Beverly Hills 90210, has died. He passed away today after suffering a massive stroke over the weekend. Coy Luther Perry III was born in Ohio. He moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in acting after graduating from high school. Perry said it took him 256 auditions before landing his first acting gig. He landed his first big role in the soap opera Loving in 1988, which required him to move to New York City. Most recently, Perry took on the role as Archie Andrews' father Fred in the hit drama Riverdale, based on the characters from the Archie comics. Luke Perry was 52 years of age. Very sad. The extreme cold weather warning finally ended for parts of our region. The mercury will be climbing soon to more seasonal values. Complete weather details are coming up. Lots of sunshine and milder temperatures today. Tonight, mainly clear with a low near -19. Tomorrow, mainly sunny again with a high near -9. Wednesday, cooling off slightly to -14. Thursday, it'll feel like spring. Sunshine and a high near +3 degrees. Friday, blue sky, but slightly cooler at -1. Saturday, a mixture of sun and cloud and a high near 0. Sunday, mainly sunny with a high near 3 degrees. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 4 degrees and an average low of -8. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1987 at 17 degrees, and the record low was a chilly -32 in 1962. Sunrise was at 7:09, sunset at 6:17. Looking at tomorrow's national temperatures now, Vancouver will be overcast and 5 degrees. Victoria will have a mixture of sun and cloud and should hit 5 as well. Calgary will be mainly sunny and -7. Edmonton slightly cooler on Tuesday with a high of -10. Regina should be mainly sunny and a high of -11. Mainly clear and -12 for Saskatoon. A mixture of sun and cloud and -10 for Winnipeg on Tuesday. Light snow and -8 for Toronto tomorrow. Snow and -11 for Ottawa. A good chance of flurries as well for Montreal and a high expected near -8. Parts of the Maritimes received a snowfall warning today. Tomorrow flurries and -4s on tap for Fredericton, New Brunswick. Halifax, Nova Scotia will have snow and -1. Charlottetown, PEI will have light snow and 0. And St. John's, Newfoundland will have showers or drizzle on Tuesday and a high near 4 degrees. The Trudeau government is being sued by CFO of Huawei, who remains under house arrest in Vancouver, awaiting extradition to the United States. Canada gave the go-ahead for the extradition process against Meng Wanzhou. Her lawyers have now filed a civil claim against Ottawa, Canada Border Services Agency, and the RCMP. The suit alleges her constitutional rights were violated and accuses officers of detaining, searching, and questioning her for several hours before notifying her of her arrest. The lawsuit seeks damages for false imprisonment based on the arrest at the Vancouver airport on December 1st. She's facing 13 criminal charges of conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction in the United States. Some in the agriculture sector are unsure about Ottawa's new federal agriculture minister since she is unknown. You can include Todd Lewis in that group. Mr. Lewis is the president of the Agriculture Producers Association of Saskatchewan. Marie-Claude Bebeau says she is from a dairy riding and knows quite a bit about supply management. She began her career working for the Canadian International Development Agency with a posting in Morocco, then operated a tourism business before being elected in 2015. Lewis was in Ottawa when the cabinet shuffle was announced, saying right now his association's priority is the carbon tax. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has announced on Twitter that the company's next vehicle will be unveiled on March 14th. The SUV, being dubbed Model Y, will have many of the same technology as the lower-cost Model 3 sedan. Tesla has an avid fan base for its cars, but has struggled with production issues. Musk says that by overlapping technology, it can get the product to market a little bit faster. Authorities in Indonesia say they are not sure how many people were buried in the collapse of a gold mine last Tuesday. Many fear the number could be as high as 100. The country's disaster agency says the official death toll so far is 9. An agency spokesperson, however, says there's no exact data on the number of victims, with some saying up to 100 may have been in some of the mine's small pits. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Treasury Board President Jane Philpott has resigned from federal cabinet. In a statement posted to her website, Philpott says recent events, including SNC-Lavalin, have shaken the federal government, and after serious reflection, she must resign as a member of cabinet. Philpott was first elected in 2015 to represent Markham-Stouffville in Ontario and has held 3 different portfolios, including Health Minister, Indigenous Services Minister, and then Treasury Board President. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman stopped by our studio recently with an update on the opioid crisis in our city and to discuss other issues our city is facing. That interview is coming up next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Join the Lethbridge Community Band Society as they celebrate music from the Silver Screen, taking place Saturday, March 9th at College Drive Community Church in Lethbridge beginning at 7 p.m. Conducted by Josh Davies, this concert will feature a variety of brass instruments not often seen in the traditional North American concert settings. The performance includes music from King Kong, Braveheart, Apollo 13, and much more. Tickets are $15 and children 12 and under are free. Purchase yours today at CASA or online at lcbs.yapcity.com. The Lethbridge Association of the Blind provides numerous activities for the blind and visually impaired in the Lethbridge area. These events include dinners with entertainment, local museum tours, and much more. For more information, call 403-942-1677 or email brownwj@shaw.ca. It's the 15th annual Woods Homes Children's Benefit Gala taking place Saturday, March 30th at 6 p.m. at the Coast Hotel, Lethbridge. This special night is in support of the emergency youth shelter, The Core. This year's gala includes a delicious dinner, silent and live auctions, and live entertainment by the Chevelles. For tickets and sponsorship opportunities, contact Colleen Campbell by calling 403-317-1777 or visit woodshomes.ca. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
We recently went on a tour through the ATB Centre Phase 2 and the new Cor Van Ray YMCA. Joining me now in studio to talk all things Lethbridge is the Mayor of Lethbridge, Mr. Chris Spearman. Welcome back to Bridge City News.
It's always a pleasure, Hal. Yeah.
So Chris, let's talk about that ATB Centre. It's massive, one of the biggest leisure centres in Canada. It's got a lot to offer, not just for the people of Lethbridge and West Lethbridge, where you and I live, but for a lot of other people too, right?
Yeah, it's going to serve the whole city and I think really the whole region. People will be coming in from across southwestern Alberta to use it. It is a very large facility. Total capital cost is $155 million. That does include the ice portion, which has been open now for a couple of years, but certainly the field house and the YMCA portion is going to be really an eye-opener for our community.
And there was a nice donation as well to the YMCA. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so that is the YMCA's news, but they did receive a $3.7 million donation from Cor Van Ray. With that, they've been able to purchase all brand new exercise equipment for use in the facility, and it's going to be a great venue for families and people who use it. Now,
the bottom line is, when can we look forward to seeing it open?
We're hoping that it's going to be open in late spring, so the guess would be sometime around mid-May. So we'll see how things go. The hardest part about any large project of that is really the final strokes and making sure that everything's completely done and that the staff who are operating it are fully trained. So there is a period of about 6 weeks after final completion of construction where training has to take place for the people who will be operating the equipment and managing the facility. So, we think it's going to be open mid-May, but the terminology we're using is late spring.
Okay. Keep it a little vague, right, on the vague side.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the concerns some residents had over the oil drilling within city limits recently. On the west side, I understand that the city did submit a formal statement of opposition to the drilling, but the Alberta Energy Regulator said it came in a little late?
Yes, and we had said that at the very beginning. The notification come to the city in October, and by the time we found out about it, the drilling was almost complete. So what we will be doing is filing a statement of opposition with respect to the water diversion rights. So certainly there's concerns around water diversion. We've had droughts the last 2 years. What happens if the city's short of water? And we want to be careful about water quality as well.
Any potential of more drilling close to the city, or is this it now?
We're not sure. We have limited rights as a municipality under the Municipal Government Act. In fact, it tells us we don't have rights. We can't block drilling. What we can do is contest any licenses to the Alberta Energy Regulator, saying, certain situations with Golden Key, it was in the path of future development. This is the most recent one is more remote at the far southwest corner of West Lethbridge, in an area where you really can't use the land for anything else. But what we want to do is make sure that any future development isn't impaired, that water isn't impaired, and that health and safety in the city aren't impaired.
The opioid crisis has been rearing its ugly head across the province, but Lethbridge is actually teaming up with 7 other cities to try and find some solutions to the crisis. It's called the Intermunicipal Opioid Response ACP Grant, and it was basically launched by Grand Prairie.
Yes.
And we're kind of teaming up with them?
Yeah, the mayor of Grand Prairie contacted me and 6 other mayors and asked if we would be on board to share our experiences in dealing with drug issues. And we would share best practices and what's working and what's not working. And we're asking the provincial government to fund that information sharing initiative. So he's leading that initiative, and the City of Lethbridge has expressed its support. What it does demonstrate is that the drug issue is one which is common across the province. It's not unique to the City of Lethbridge.
Last time I chatted with Chief Rob Davis, he was saying that meth has overtaken opioids as the drug on the street. What are you hearing now?
Well, it changes every year, and that has been the frustrating part. It's been so dynamic. Certainly in 2018, there was an increased use of meth, also a heroin meth mix. So drugs are changing, and the strength of those drugs can vary incredibly. So suddenly you'll get a really strong batch come to town. There'll be overdoses. In terms of the supervised consumption site, they've done hundreds of reversals, and there were 22 deaths in Lethbridge from overdoses in 2018, but none of them occurred at the supervised consumption site.
Well, that's good to hear. Let's talk about United We Roll, which took place in Ottawa recently. Red Deer, the big convoy, hundreds of truckers heading out there, fighting for the energy industry, Bill C-6968, wanting to see changes here. Lethbridge MP Rachel Harder, she was a big advocate of it as well. What were your thoughts of some of these truckers fighting for the energy sectors and Albertans?
Well, the energy industry is important to Alberta. It has been a wealth generator for years. And I think people can understand, in Alberta, we feel that the federal government's not listening when it comes to supporting the oil industry. And the message of those who were part of United We Roll was to try and get the attention of the politicians in Ottawa, saying, this is an important industry, not only to Alberta, but to the whole country.
So City Council voted unanimously to designate the old Bank of Montreal, built in 1954, on 3rd Avenue South as a municipal historic resource. Why that building specifically?
Well, we have a committee that looks at buildings, and ones that have unique architectural features are ones that are selected for preservation. If they are high quality architectural features, so it was, I know banks in cities usually had impressive appearances to demonstrate wealth, and so that building is a former bank and is a very solid building, and one which we feel has those type of features. So we do want to preserve them and enhance that building.
Lethbridge Hurricanes had a very special game recently because the Boulay family dropped the puck for organ donation with Logan Boulay, who donated 6 of his organs to help save 6 people's lives. And there's some other big news involving the Boulay family as well, isn't there?
Yep.
The Canes.
Today at Lethbridge City Hall, we had the Boulay family come in, and they will be promoting Sunday, April the 7th, as Green Shirt Day, which will be to raise the profile of organ donation. So the Boulay family would like to remember Logan and certainly the wonderful impact he's had on Canada, encouraging people to register for organ donation. And we want to support them. At 4 o'clock on Sunday, April the 7th, there will be a free skate at the ATB Leisure Centre.
Okay.
And people will be wearing green shirts and supporting it. And we also will be encouraging people to register to donate their organs so that others may have a full life.
Yeah, it's a great cause, absolutely. You know, the Humboldt Broncos, the tragedy, it's nice to see them rebound nicely this season as they rebuilt the team. And speaking of rebounding, the Lethbridge Hurricanes had a bit of a tough go for a while there, but they've rebounded nicely. Only a few points out of first place, and a big win recently as well.
That's right. We went into Prince Albert and beat the #1 team in the country, 5-4 in overtime. But winning in Prince Albert and beating Canada's #1 rated team is awesome. And I think the Lethbridge Hurricanes are telling everybody they're ready for the playoffs.
And the playoffs just around the corner, but they're going to be displaced for a few games because of the men's curling championships coming to town.
Yep.
Have we talked about any compensation maybe for the Canes? What's going on there?
Well, there are discussions underway, and you know, we'll take a look at it at the end of the season. Certainly want to value the Lethbridge Hurricanes, and you know, it's challenging that we only have one NMAX center, but where we had the chance to host the World Men's Curling Championships, it's tremendous that we'll be hosting those, and there'll be a focus on Lethbridge for a week. But certainly we want to make sure that we continue to support the Hurricanes. Modifications have been completed at the Nicholas Sharon Arena. The attendance and capacity will be substantially less than the NMAX, but I think we have to find ways to compensate for that. So maybe we can televise the game in other areas, have fans attend and watch on the big screen and continue to support the team. Might be great opportunities for some of our local businesses to show the game in some of our restaurants and other facilities where people can go and watch the game, like at Brown Social House, and you know. So I think there's ways to continue to support the Hurricanes, and maybe some win-wins for others in the community.
So the Men's World Curling Championships, Mayor, let's chit-chat a bit about that. How important is a big event like that, a world-class event, being brought to the city?
Well, it's wonderful to have these types of events where Lethbridge is featured, and people learn a little bit about Lethbridge, and we want to do the best we can to put Lethbridge's best foot forward and say, you know, we're capable of hosting world-class events, and we want to make sure that the guests, the athletes, all those who come to our city have a great time.
What kind of money would that actually generate to the city, do you think?
That's a tough question to answer, and we always get reports afterwards about how many hotel rooms were booked and what the impact was on local restaurants. But there's definitely an uptick, and the bigger piece is the city's respect and reputation. So we want to make sure that Lethbridge is seen well, and people consider coming to Lethbridge.
The International Peace Powwow Festival took place recently at the NMAX Center, and you know, put on with the Blood Reserve and the Blackfoot people. How is reconciliation really going right now for Lethbridge and the Aboriginal community?
Well, the Reconciliation Advisory Committee meets on a monthly basis. They're looking at what the next steps are going to be in terms of our responses to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and certainly those recommendations will be coming forward. It's wonderful that we have dedicated volunteers serving on that committee. So we have committees basically about 50% Indigenous and 50% non-Indigenous, but certainly we're hearing those Indigenous voices, and we're learning about how to work together. And we've hired a consultant, and we'll be looking at developing a strategic plan that we will share with council in the near future. But great that we have such a large Indigenous presence, and that can be a positive. And this was the 20th powwow that's been held. So, so powwows for 20 years. You know, certainly it's a big part of who we are in southwestern Alberta and in the city of Lethbridge. And as you know, our Premier, Rachel Notley,
was given a name, yeah.
was given an Indigenous name and headdress. So,
do you have a name?
I do have a name.
And what's it? Can you pronounce it?
No, I can't.
What does it mean, though?
It means
colorful suit jackets. No, what?
No, it's
No?
It's man with a heart.
Man with a heart. Well,
Yeah.
that's not too bad. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, man with a heart, I want to ask you something about all of the snow clearing going on in our city. It's not fast enough. There's not enough of it going on.
Yeah.
Priorities 1 and 2. I have new people moving to Lethbridge asking me, what's going on? How come my neighborhood's not being cleared with the snow? Do you want to enlighten some of the newcomers to Lethbridge? How that works?
Well,
Snow clearing?
we do clear snow on a priority route basis. We do snow clearing a little differently than what many people are used to. So we don't use a lot of salt on our roads. We tend to clear snow into the middle of the road and then pick it up afterwards. So we don't fill in people's driveways like they do in many other cities. They just send a plow along and fill in the driveway. So our service levels are different. So many people would like to see residential streets plowed, but we don't do that either.
Taxes would go up, I guess, right, if you did that?
That's right. There would be an extensive cost. Generally, most years it's not an issue, and roads are not impassable. They are, you know, certainly you get the packed ice effect, and people just have to slow down and drive for the conditions.
Right. Now, spring's just around the corner as well. I'm pretty excited because the Blue Box campaign will finally be here. Let's talk a bit about that.
Okay.
Fill me in! You know, because when I moved back home to Alberta from Southern Ontario, we had like 2 blue boxes, we had a compost bin and the garbage can. But when I moved to Lethbridge, it was just a garbage can. And the house I was renting, and the landlord says, oh, don't worry, but just throw everything in the garbage. I'm like, what, you don't recycle here? Well, sort of, but you got to go out to the recycling depot and, you know.
Yeah.
But we're finally going to have it here. And wasn't there, like, in the last 10 months, 50,000 kilograms of material, and about 85% of that has been recyclable. So it's, you know, we're going to have recycling going full stream here in the next few months.
We will have a Blue Box program, and there will be a community education component. So some plastics are acceptable for recycling, some are more difficult and usually can't be recycled easily. So we will have that education program and the blue bins rolling out by the end of April for sure. So you can see your blue bin, and you can probably see that we will have the recycling program, blue bin recycling program, working in the late spring.
Looking forward to it. I'm a big fan of recycling, doing my part for the environment. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman, thanks again for joining us in studio today.
Always a pleasure, Hal.
We all applaud the great work of William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson in stopping the slave trade in the 1800s. But has it really stopped? How much of a problem is slavery today? Joining me now in studio is the director of Not For Sale, Joylyn Stickle, a group working to free children, our children, from the human trafficking industry. Welcome back to BCM.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So Joylyn, why don't you share with our viewers a little bit about your organization, Not For Sale? What is it all about?
Not For Sale is, our purpose is to rescue and restore kids from the sex trade. And we want to take kids out of the sex trade. We want to go into places where they are, which really is everywhere. But right now we are in Mexico. We've been in Cambodia before, but right now we're in Mexico, and we have a home there, and we're setting it up to just have as many girls as we can and rescue them from the trade there.
How prominent is the sex trade industry here in Canada?
It's crazy, and it's so underground that it's hard to tell where it is, but we have a girl in our organization who was trafficked in Lethbridge here and in Calgary. And it's
How young was she at that time?
she was 4.
4 years old?
She was 4 when it started.
Oh my word.
And it went on for 8 years, and
Wow.
she finally got out when she was 12 and her family moved away. But
Oh my
it's
goodness.
prevalent everywhere. It's insane. And yeah, it's not something that is just overseas. It's not something that's just in the poor countries. It's all over the place.
So how does Canada compare to other countries around the world when it comes to human trafficking?
We're seeing more and more raids. We're seeing more and more rescues that are happening, and so it's coming out more and more that these kids are. It's hard to tell because it is underground, but the awareness that is happening because of different organizations and people being having their eyes open that this is something that it's everywhere. So as far as the balance between here and everywhere else, it's hard to tell, but it's easy to just kind of close our eyes and say, well, it's over there and it's not here, and but we can't do that anymore.
It would be foolish to believe that it's happening in other countries but not here in Canada.
Absolutely.
So how do these predators go after a lot of these children? Are they kidnapped, the kids?
It depends. A lot of cases in Canada, there's a whole system that that predators use where they go to the malls and they know the type of kids, girls and boys, that they're trained, right? Like they're trained to see what these kids need and what they're lacking in their life, and they'll go to the mall and just kind of scope out and see what kids are kind of vulnerable. And so there's a lot of that goes on, and then they just kind of start befriending them, telling them what they want to hear, telling them that they're needed and
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful, yeah, and they have a purpose, and then it ends up that purpose is to raise money for these
Wow.
predators and stuff. And so it's just a whole tangled web of that. So you see a lot more of that way of doing things in Canada. In Mexico, it is a lot of parents selling their kids or just leaving them on the streets vulnerable. Grandparents, you see that it's just a profit for them. And
Do many of the predators as well get kids hooked on drugs?
yes, absolutely.
That's a way of controlling the children too?
Yeah, in all over the place. So when you go to the mall and you just have, or even get hooked on, you're buying them a new pair of shoes every day or whatever. And
That can be a drug too.
yep, absolutely. And so they get hooked on something, and a lot of times it is drugs, but then it turns around where the predators are like, okay, now you owe me, and this is how you're going to pay me back.
Are a lot of these predators also quite violent towards these kids? Maybe using threats of intimidation, perhaps?
Probably, yeah. And obviously every story is different, but yeah, definitely, like you can't necessarily control somebody with a soft hand, right? As easily as you can with a harsh hand. So yeah, you see different stories. They're all horrible, but it's all different with how everybody uses this issue.
One movie that I saw that really shook me to the core was Taken with Liam Neeson,
Yeah.
where these predators were scoping out young girls at the airport.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
arriving in Paris, these terrorists and these you know, human traffickers. Is that more of a Hollywood script, or do we see that as well
Oh no, that's
at the airports?
Yep, at the airports, at the malls, anywhere that there's vulnerable kids, right? And teenagers and somebody who's left open.
So what is the age range? You talked about somebody as young as 4,
Right.
but do human traffickers more go after maybe preteens or teens?
Yeah, usually like when they're going through puberty or when they're going through that awkward stage where every kid goes through it, they prey on that. And if they don't have the support system that kids should have, then they're easy targets at that age. But we have heard of different stories, horrible stories of it being as young as right when mom gives birth, and baby is. A couple years ago, we heard a story of that, and there was a porn ring that was shut down, and baby was still attached to mom, and they're abusing these babies. And so it's just horrific, and there's no end to what these people can think of to make profit or to abuse these children.
How about using the online as a powerful tool as well?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, social media, and probably reaching out to a lot of young girls or young boys
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
Through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram,
Yep,
right?
chat sites, and
Yep.
they pose as young girls that are being friends and put up the pictures of that, and then when they want to meet, then it's this either woman or man or whatever, that they have lured them in, and it's a huge issue online.
So are you working a lot with police services, police agencies then?
We are
to
in
combat
Mexico.
this? Yeah?
Yeah, we get to, we're learning because, again, Mexico is dangerous, and there's cartels, and so we're learning by getting into the government agencies and figuring out how they work and what cartels they are working with. Some of them are very protective of the children, and some of them use the children. And so if you're not there, if you're not local, then it's hard to tell. But we are working with the government agencies, and right now that's how we are working to get kids into our home.
Is it just girls, or are there also boys that are human trafficked?
Absolutely boys. Right now we are working with girls. We want to eventually branch out into a boys' home as well. We can't have them together, obviously, but boys, girls, it doesn't matter. Like, it's a sick world out there, for sure.
So how are a lot of these children rescued then? Once you find out who these predators are, you get the police involved, they do the bust, then describe the process of restoration and healing for a lot of these kids.
Well, for us in our home, we're faith-based, and we know that Jesus is the answer, and that they're not going to get total healing without that. And so, and then the other thing is they need to know that they're loved and they're not needed for anything, right? We're not there to use them. We're not there to get something out of them. We're there to show them that they can be kids, they can be restored. So in a practical sense, we bring them in. There's doctors and counselors and teachers and everything involved with just kind of assessing and making sure that they're okay.
It's not just physical damage, but psychological damage as well.
Yeah, you
that
see,
could last for many years.
Yep, yeah, you do, and you see that, and it's heartbreaking. One of our girls came in, and she was nonverbal, and she wouldn't talk for a few weeks until she just really felt embraced and felt loved and not abused. And and so it's just a process, and every story is different. Every girl is different. You never know really how long it's going to take, because just like us and our healing and any process that anybody goes through, it's a different story each time, and it's a different background each time. And so yeah, our heart is just to love these girls who they are, and
love them where they're at,
and ultimately just show them that they are so loved.
How about showing them life skills as well, Joylyn, especially if they've been kidnapped, abducted at a very young age.
Yeah.
They don't know how to cook, they don't know how to sew, they don't know a lot of life skills.
Yeah.
So that's important to teach the kids those skills as well.
It is, yeah. And so our goal is to kind of bring them into a home like setting, obviously. It's called a safe home. And first off, let them know they're safe, but give them responsibilities and give them jobs and give them something that gives them value as part of a family. And the goal is just to have them be part of a family, for sure. And not coddle them because of what they've gone through, but just give them some strength to be able to just work through being kids and the responsibility that comes with that. But also in the long run, like you were saying, we want to show them some trades and some skills and see what they're interested in. And in the past, we've done sewing schools in Cambodia and bead classes and and different things that kind of work with that
pottery
culture.
Classes would be fun too.
Pottery,
right?
and card making they've done and stuff. So because it is so easy to get out of the home and go straight back into it, because it's so in the open and so easy. This is more in Mexico. So easy to just get back into it, and so we need to give them a trade.
How important is it, Joylyn, to have somebody who was human trafficked, went through it, was restored, to be able to talk to other kids saying, I was where you are now, and I can help you. I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody who's in their 40s or 50s saying, oh, I can help you out, and the young people are like, you don't have a clue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, well, in any walk of life too.
Right.
You want to kind of, you gravitate to people who have been there and who have
done that.
have done it. And so, and like I said, my friend who is in my organization who was trafficked, she has such a depth of knowledge, and she's just able to kind of connect on a different level than anyone else who's not been abused that way. And so people who are willing to use that story and help others, it's such a beautiful circle. And we honor that.
How long does it take a lot of kids to recover?
Again, it's different for everybody. We've seen kids come in and just connect with the family and be able to just kind of feel like normal kids again. But then down the road, something will trigger and something will set them off, and then they'll need to kind of process up again. And then sometimes, like our little friend who I said was nonverbal for a couple weeks, it kind of takes longer at the beginning, but then it's kind of a slow, steady process. So it's hard to say, right? Like, it's hard to say everybody's different story, but I think the thing with us who are working with them and ministering to them, we just need to understand that it's not, okay, well, we're the saviors who have come in and now you're safe and everything's good, because we know they're safe and we know that it's not going to happen again as long as they're with us, but they don't. And so it's just something that we need to have patience with and understand that it's a process for their little hearts.
What percentage of kids are abducted, not necessarily taken into the slave trade industry, but are maybe abducted, kidnapped, and put into hard labor camps and factories as well, right?
Yeah. I don't really have those statistics. We kind of haven't focused as much on that, but it's all out there for sure. I've had read that about 50% is sex slavery in the whole of human trafficking stats that they put out there, and about 50% of that is children. So.
Now, you say you're quite active in places like Mexico. What are other governments doing right now to really combat human trafficking?
I think
maybe something that we could adopt here in Canada.
Yeah.
In North America.
Yeah, I think, well, and it's different because we have been in Cambodia, which was a whole different government system, and we got used to that, and then we moved to Mexico to kind of be closer to home. And it's a whole different system there too. But I think some of the things that governments are doing really well are just raising awareness and having supports out there, like on billboards, call this number if you suspect something or whatever. And awareness is huge. Like I said, 10 years ago, I didn't have a clue that this was a thing, and now this is my heart and this is what I do. And so I think just raising awareness, making sure that people know that they have a place to go to, and a great thing is funding the ministries that are actually doing the work on the ground.
What are some of the warning signs that I can really look out for, especially as a parent if my child is potentially being human trafficked? Yeah,
I think, again, like we had talked about, it usually happens kind of during puberty age, so it's hard to kind of tell if they're just withdrawing because of
maybe more reclusive.
Yeah, but yeah, being reclusive, being online a lot, being secretive, shutting off their computer when mom and dad walks into the room. If they're going somewhere and saying, not telling you who they're going to be with, if they have new clothes, if they've cut their hair off, right? Like just different things that really, as parents, it's just really wise to be with them and to focus on them and just to kind of be aware of anything that's kind of seems off, and trust your gut with that for sure.
So what's the first step? If maybe your child has been sucked into the human trafficking world, what do you do as a parent? What's the very first step?
Yeah, you talk to them, and you could go to the police if you feel that it's at that place.
They may feel betrayed though, your kids, right? If you do something like that?
Yeah, but I think you have to have
tough love?
Tough love. Like, honestly, this is their life on the line.
Yeah.
And their value and how they feel about themselves. And so, yeah, definitely, I think you have to get in there and just tough love on them and just be so in their world.
Joylyn Stickle, Director of Not for Sale, thanks a lot for joining me in studio today.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, be safe, and have a great night.